Good morning. Clay Shirky, welcome to London. Clay Shirky, the author of Here Comes Everybody, is keynoting this year at the online conference in London. Clay, welcome.
Thanks very much.
Your book was certainly striking, Clay, and the thing that struck me was that you reckon we're on the dawn of a new age. We're in a different kind of society, and a society where we've got the largest increase in human expressive capability. Just talk us through that for a second. What's the impact going to be on us?
Well, the change in expressive capability really comes about from the fusing of two old communications patterns, right? We've always had broadcast media. We've always had a printing press or a radio tower, television, where something in the center is sent to people at the edges. And we've always had communications, right? Two-way communications like you and I are having now over the telephone, the telegraph, messages back and forth. But what we've never had is a group medium that's good for two-way communications. The stuff that was good for groups wasn't good for conversation. The stuff that was good for conversation wasn't good for groups. The internet, mobile phones, the applications built on top of them now give us a many-to-many medium, a medium where people can all come together. And because of that, we now have a medium that supports group action. And when you start to think about what matters in society, almost everything that's of any scale or longevity involves the work of groups. So when you suddenly have, and when I say suddenly I mean sort of in a historical generation, when you suddenly have a society where the work of groups becomes much, much easier. It's easier for people to find each other. It's easier for them to share, to collaborate, to act together. You start to see all kinds of remarkable effects where groups are acting in places that they never really could before.
But from the information perspective, we've got a strange situation now where we have mass amateurization, which is having an impact on every information and media profession. How do you see that? Is that a good thing?
It's a thing. I try not to make value judgments. I'm an optimist. I'm not a utopian. There are certainly downsides to this, but this mass amateurization is a kind of a one-way change, right? The only real analogy I can find historically is the rise of literacy after the spread of the printing press, after the spread of movable type. Because suddenly there was such an abundance of this stuff that the ability to read and write went from being a profession remanded to the scribes to something that an increasingly large slice of the general population could do. Now that same characteristic is coming to publishing. And I use the phrase mass amateurization to counteract a sense that every individual in their home is becoming a professional publisher, right? A professional class assumes a minority of people. You can't have a large-scale professional class by definition. So my theory is that we're living in this period of mass amateurization where it's not that you can't tell the difference between a random blogger and the anchor on the BBC. What's changed is that you can't find any dividing line between those two. You can always find anywhere along the spectrum now someone who's working at some degree of sort of amateur or professional engagement. And that change from a distinction between professionals and amateurs to a spectrum is a huge change in the media landscape as we've known it.
Well, it is, because you've now become, as you've said in your book, publish, then filter, as opposed to filter, then publish, which has a huge impact on the volume.
Yeah, no, and volume, it's, Alex Wright has done this book, who's an information architect, this book on glut, on sort of information overload through the ages. And although we love to tell ourselves that we're now suffering from information overload, in fact, right, the minute someone got more than 1,000 books in their library, there was a degree of information overload. And so it's a problem that well predates the current era. And what we've always done up until now is apply these filters at the publisher, right? The group.
The quality filters.
Exactly. The quality filter went in advance of taking on the expense of creating a show or publishing a book or a magazine or what have you. Now, if anyone can publish anything at any time, and they frequently do, as you can tell if you wander around the weblog world, you can't filter for quality in advance. There is no professional point at which the filter can be joined up to production. And so all of the filtering has to be after the fact. And this is such a dramatic change in everything from the economics of publishing to the nature of library science that all of the professions that are geared around the idea that to publish is a special behavior are now up for grabs.
Yeah, and that's the impact, really. Take the library and information world. What's the role of the library and information professional in this world when it's publish, then filter?
The weight, the entire weight of the information science profession is shifting from organize to discover. Right. The shift, in fact, in the search engine world, and you can see this just in the dozen years we've had anything that you could reasonably call a search engine. The early attempts to organize internet scale information, things like Gopher and Wace and Archie, were all attempts to apply some kind of categorization, almost exactly like the British Library categorization.
Class, yes.
Exactly right. And even Yahoo, right? Even the first sort of web native company we had a kind of top level ontology. They in fact had a staff ontologist, and ultimately all of those efforts have failed in the onslaught of just pure volume. And it was Google, in fact, who said, you know what, we're not here to impose order, we're here to extract order, right? We're just going to look at the link structure and the way people are describing things and make resources findable for the user without having had them organized up front by the professionals. And that shift is appearing everywhere there's an abundance of or a superabundance of information, which is to say almost everywhere now.